We have today a living legend with us today, the hero of Carnoustie. John Philp does not like that phrase, but it is the truth. After an apprenticeship at St Andrews and a short time as a course manager in Cambridgeshire, John was appointed superintendent at Carnoustie in 1985, when the course had reverted through overwatering and fertilising to pure Piranha. There were lots of things that needed turning round, and his team achieved it, allowing the R&A to return the Open Championship in 1999 after a 24-year absence. Awarded an MBE for services to golf, John is Europe's most respected fine grass greenkeeper. Disgracefully, there are only 2 golf holes in the UK named after greenkeepers, but at least they are after the finest. The 11th at Carnoustie is called John Philp. The other, the 18th at St Andrews Old, called Tom Morris. Please welcome John Philp to talk to us about the running game.
Thanks for the very complimentary introduction, but I don't know if I can live up to that super profile you've made up there. But anyway, it was, of course, a tremendous honour to have the 11th hole named after me at Carnoustie. But I have to say, the return of the Open Championship there was a huge team effort over many years, especially from a brilliant greenkeeping team and, of course, many other people, including the Carnoustie Links Management Committee and R&A agronomists, Jim Arthur in the first instance in the early years, and of course followed by Steve Isaac, whom you've heard from today. However, the return of Carnoustie to fine grass dominance and the running game during my time from 1985 until this Frenchman paddled in the Barry Burn 14 years later is not why we're here today, or at least not why I'm here today, really, because I want to focus on issues wider and more golfing orientated than the technical aspects of greenkeeping that we've heard have been covered so well already this morning. So, what is the case for the running game, which must be recognised from the perspective of the golfer if associated greenkeeping is to reap the rewards? Here is the combination. We have an excellent greenkeeper and links superintendent and a scratch golfer, Sandy Reid, my successor at Carnoustie. However, firstly, we have to accept, sadly, that broadly speaking, target golf has been preeminent in this country for a long time now, and this is not the natural game. I think, therefore, we should remember some historical factors as to why the game became popular, which, if lost, will result in a bleaker future for golf. Here we have, to a golfer, there are 3 main elements in the game: the turf, the terrain, and the equipment we use to play it. I maintain that the one element we should least play about with are the qualities in the turf so necessary for the full enjoyment and reward for skill in the playing of the game. Architecture, and to a lesser degree equipment, are the more flexible elements involved. Golf is a unique game in that it is one of the few sports where the playing surfaces are as important and as potentially variable as the game itself. We've seen this one already. I think Gordon had this particular slide up. Those with the responsibility for developments in all aspects of golf, whether it be maintenance, equipment, course design, or rules changes, would do well to frequently check them against the values of traditional running golf on the links, which originally helped propel the game on its way to widespread popularity. Now let's take a look at these ingredients. Firm, dense, fine fairway turf promotes bounce and roll of the golf ball, quite apart from providing the lies from where quality ball striking can be rewarded with a ball under control rather than one bounding on through the green. Here we have Open Championship fairway performance guidelines. Very important, of course, that's why the top one is where it is, because they need to be firm to be able to squeeze the ball and get maximum backspin, so therefore hence leading to control. The bottom one is also important, so that the fairway contours bring the bunkers into play. Greens and their approaches and runoffs ideally need to replicate the same standard of tight fescue bent dominated turf, which also provides the best year-round surfaces, putting surfaces, with consistent ball reaction, while offering several options of recovery when greens are missed. Sandy link sites, of course, have the main advantage of having a free draining naturally. They're pretty straightforward to read there, but the one I would like to highlight is the second one, already been mentioned today, of course, but approaches should facilitate running shots. We don't want fairway approaches and greens to have a different ball reaction. We want the reaction to be very, very similar, the only difference being perhaps the height of cut. Now, interestingly, a lot of inland golf courses, as they were developed many years ago on poor agricultural land across heathland and downland areas, for instance, also had natural fine turf, or were sown out with fescue bent mixtures where required. These grasses dominated running golf courses in their early existence and were proven over the years. It has to be emphasised, as has already been done, I'm repeating here and there, but that infiltration and drainage are absolutely critical on most inland sites if a suitable or sustainable fine, firm, perennial turf is to be achieved. Not forgetting the need for abundant airflow and light in the promotion of a dry surface, which is what we're after. This is certainly what we don't want. The slide on the right, of course, wasn't made with golf balls. This was golf ball-sized hailstones. But the one on the left, unfortunately, is real. So I'm going to move on from that. We don't like it. Hence the need for the removal of self-seeded trees, particularly around greens. Tree plantations and desirable golfing turf, of course, have never been the best of bedfellows, and many originally open heathland courses, for example, have suffered accordingly. This is all in line with society's increasing demand for a conservationist approach and an emphasis on low inputs and lower costs. This is it, the home of golf. And turf performance must be the key. Not colour, pretty patterns, excessive green speeds, or any other disguises, if ideal playing surfaces are the aim. I will never forget the classic 1977 article by Al Radko, at that time the National Director of the USGA, addressing the multitude of lush bottle green courses across America at the time, and the title said it all, "Green is not great," adding, "Let's go back to playing golf on grass, not colour." The terrain is why I've got this slide up here anyway. The contours and links courses are usually more varied and radical than those found on most inland courses. This natural landform facilitates many more interesting play options because of their running nature, which in the majority of cases can only be positive for playing the game, its enjoyment, sense of achievement, and the feeling of being part of nature. Or, as Lorne describes it in FineGolf, the joy to be alive feeling. And aren't we happy to be alive? Moving on. I well remember in my youth learning the running chip shot with a 7-iron, held down the grip, and using the contours on the links along the Fife coast. on courses such as Crail, Ely, which you see here, and Leven, even in winter. The fun and creativity of the running chip shot on firm ground, if lost, will undermine enjoyment for the recreational player. Professionals are the celebrities in golf, but the recreational players are the lifeblood of the game. Their enjoyment, I say, is critical. Looking at equipment now, the third element I've highlighted. Obviously, golf has evolved a great deal in many ways over the decades, especially from around the late 50s and early 60s with the advent of golf on television, where much of the coverage focused on tee shots and putting. Here we see the cameras covering the Open at St Andrews 60 years ago, obviously with the help of some sturdy car roofs. The player's obsession to hit the ball as far as possible has always been a big commercial opportunity for manufacturers of both balls and clubs. Equipment development has undoubtedly made the game easier, with the upside of stimulating an increase in participation. But however, the gap between Mr. Average and the elite has further widened, as obviously it is the elite who have gained most from technological advances. Modern implements have encouraged largely an aerial game, and along with it, although not the primary culprit, softer target turf. Golf ball developments in particular have been at the forefront of controversy since the first wound ball, the Haskell, appeared at the beginning of the 20th century. Ball construction since the 70s has moved a two-piece onto three-piece, four-piece, nowadays 5-piece, using materials designed for space travel, no less. There is no simple solution to these issues. Future deliberations may well lead to bifurcation between Mr. Average and the elite, as I call them. However, ball distance can be controlled and needs to be reduced, particularly for the professional. Here is a straightforward reply from Jack Nicklaus to a letter I sent to him over 20 years ago, highlighting changes we were making at Carnoustie to protect the integrity of the course in the face of the increasing capability of professional players in particular. I think we can all read it, maybe, I don't know, but the answer, of course, very simply, to a very long letter, I must admit, control the golf ball, period, which Jack's always advocated long before this time. I think it's fair to say that the 90s saw the biggest development in the ball and clubs as well, and hence the biggest increase in ball flight distance we've had. That was a period that we could have done without, but there we are, we've had it. I did want to say a brief word about wind effect, but we haven't got the golfer, so same thing. The wind effect, which challenges players' estimation of distance and direction, as well as, importantly, ball flight control, and can also, of course, have an influence on putting. Gusting, along with directional changes, present a major factor on the more open running courses, especially links by the sea. I'm sorry about the missing golfer, because I was going to make a comment about him. But I can't do it, because he's disappeared. Despite the equipment issue, the factors aforementioned promote the running game we are highlighting today. If this real golf situation were to be the norm, I feel there would be a few notable departures from how the game is presented nowadays. For instance, luck could play a greater role than it does in today's target game. Firmer surfaces, testing winds and variable contours mean that seemingly perfectly educated shots can bounce into hazard areas. Oh dear. This has always seemed unfair to the likes of Victorian J.H. Taylor, right up to many current professionals, but it is to be expected on well-designed running courses, both on the links and inland. As Jack Nicklaus, again, I'm a big Jack Nicklaus fan, you see, among others, has quoted many times, "Golf was never meant to be a fair game. The best players are not always those who play the best shots, but just as importantly are those with the greatest mental fortitude to overcome adversity to complement their shot-making skills." Distance is another feature where there's a tendency to observe unwritten rules about length of holes relative to par. For professional tournaments, we have par 3s up to 300 yards nowadays and par 5s well upwards of 500. For example, there were 2 par 4s at Birkdale at 499 yards this year for the Open. Running conditions can provide more flexibility in this regard, and the length of holes should not be so rigorously defined as they are today. This is the 6th green complex at Birkdale, one of those 499 yarders. I think it might have been rated the toughest hole on the course, but I'm not sure at the Open. It'd be one of the toughest. However, there are other features of the modern game that have changed golf, especially for recreational players, not necessarily for the better. Scoring, for instance. Like the concept of par, recording every shot played over the course of a round does not automatically give an accurate reflection of how well the course was negotiated. An unlucky bounce or two into deep bunkers or rough may well run up a player's score that virtually spoils the remainder of their day of golf, with little chance of posting a competitive score. So, the solution to all of this, way back in time, was, of course, match play. We don't all go back as far as this, of course, but this was indeed, of course, the format used for the US PGA Championship right up until 1958. A disaster on any hole doesn't waste the whole round. Players are more conscious of others, adding another dimension to the self-absorbed nature of play that stroke play instills. Match play also encourages more variation in shot making, as a very risky shot is something most players would be unlikely to take on in stroke play for fear of ruining their card. Also, players are not obliged, of course, to play all 18 holes, as they can leave the course when a match is won or lost. I know some of you may realise, but on the far left there is the great old Tom in his younger day, because this is in the mid-1800s. And third on the right, I think, is Alan Robertson, recognised as the first golf professional, the leading players of their day. All right. Match play then, as I suggest, a much more attractive form of play for encouraging new players of all ages into the game, as it helps remove the dispiriting aspects of keeping a scorecard and reduces the curse of slow play. In its origins, this was the essence of the game which made it popular. Here we see the true spirit of the game displayed at the 1969 Ryder Cup, as Jack Nicklaus concedes Tony Jacklин's relatively short putt for a half match, which was also the result of the cup itself. It was a tie. Nowadays, the regard for positional strategic play has been substantially diminished at numerous golf courses and events. Witness here the Ryder Cup at Hazeltine, where the pin was attacked successfully from all angles, even from the rough, as well as from bunkers, as we see here, which I consider were falsely prepared so that balls entering wherever generally ended up on the flat floor after roller coasting around the slopes of the perimeter. No reward there then for an opponent in the A1 position on the fairway. End result, mostly a putting competition yet again, undervaluing the otherwise exciting match play format. I think it's quite clear on there how smooth and indeed, which isn't detectable but firm, the perimeter of the bunker is, and the only raked area was on the flat floor, which largely all the balls ended up on. I think I noticed this at Quail Hollow and the US PGA this year as well. The same effect. It seems to be spreading It needs to be stopped. We're in danger of losing the original game and the sense of enjoyment and achievement that strategic play and variety of shot making brings. Golfing on firm, fine grass turf in typically breezy weather and playing match play against a colleague or colleagues in foursomes, you realise a feel for the traditional roots and values of the game. In particular, the interest, the excitement and the human factor. A key aspect of the game is what happens to the player and his partner as they play the course and not what is written down on a card. I say running golf on fine turf is the ideal. It is both the history and the future of the game. I leave you with concerns voiced some 100 years ago from highly respected figures in the Royal and Ancient such as John L. Lowe, Carnoustie man Robert Harris and Angus Hambro, as well as leading players of the time, which I feel are still relevant to this day. Well, there you are. The ball should be made to fit the courses, not the courses to fit the ball. And when we get down nearer the 18th green, this was at the Open, of course, in 2007, skill and craft in winning championships should be that of the golfer, not the manufacturer. How true that still rings to me anyway today, and it was quoted from these guys all those years ago. Anyway, I rest my case. Thanks very much for your attention.